Good morning. You know, 3-month, 90-day practice periods go all the way back to the Shakyamuni Buddha's time and are related to the rainy season when the monks couldn't travel, so they had to settle down. And, my knowledge of history is spotty at best, but in China, there were temples on, mountains with long distances in between, and monks were traveling from monastery to monastery, visiting sometimes different teachers until they found somebody where they were going to settle. And but for a 90-day practice period, you would settle at one place. And then I think in Japan, with established temples and monks living at certain temples, these 90-day practice periods morphed into times of intensified practice. So you run the temple, you have various things to do, work, but during 90 days you sit more zazen. You have a different kind of time. And I was always fascinated by this format, the monastic version of it, and I've done 20 practice periods like this. And the main rule of the practice period, there's many rules, but the main rule is not to leave. And I've always was curious, this not leaving. If you want to say it positively, it's staying. Staying, but staying with what? Staying with the schedule, staying with the group of people that assembled during this time, whether you like them or not. Staying with the circumstances of that time. Not going away. And 4 years ago I left the monastery, and I'm holding the question now for myself, but I'm trying to hold it for you. It's like, how do you stay in a place of practice? I personally, I don't think that monasticism in the West has a big chance. I think probably fewer and fewer people want to do it. Now, the world is unstable, so, it's like all kinds of things can happen. Maybe it will become attractive, to live with a group of people in a remote place and not be bothered by wild times. I don't know. But overall, if the society, the way we have it, stays attractive as it is and easy in a way, not for everyone, but for most of us here, fairly easy. You turn on the faucet, water comes out, plug in your computer, there's electricity. All this can be disrupted through various circumstances, but right now, we may struggle in all kinds of ways, but compared to other times, it's pretty easy. So how do you stay in a place of practice, and what does this even mean? Dogen is interesting. He doesn't really divide practice from realization. This could be a whole talk or 10 talks, but I'll just say this much. there's a view that we are already realized. It's not like we need to add something to our existence. Something called enlightenment or realization or Buddhahood. It's like if someone said to you, you have to attain your body, you would say like, oh, I have to attain my body. It's like, it's already there. There's nothing to attain there. And similar, the mind of realization is not something you need to attain, as if it has to like come as a new thing. So Dogen was very reluctant to speak of realization and practice as separate things, as like you practice in order to realize. It's like we express our realization through our practice. So how do you stay in a place of practice realization? Maybe it's too optimistic to think that it's possible within our everyday life circumstances. But if that's too optimistic, then there's not much is possible, really. It's like you need special circumstances, and then it's going to be for very few people. So staying here, when you define a place here in contradistinction to another place there, then you have some kind of boundary. This is here and that's there, over there. This makes sense, conventionally speaking. We're here and other people are over there. When you investigate here more diligently, at some point you'll find, you can always divide. As soon as there's size, you can always keep dividing, and then at some point you just have a here that is like in geometry, where you just have a point that has no extension and is just pure position. And such a here doesn't really exist for us. It exists as a concept, but it's like if you decided to locate yourself between your ears or behind your eyes, then then the tip of your nose would be a there. It's like I'm here and this is there. If you go in the other direction, it's like you can define here in increasingly large spaces. You could say this zendo here is here, and everything outside of it is there. We can define Boulder as here, and the rest of Colorado is there, or Colorado is here, or the United States is here, or the Earth is here, or if you keep going, you arrive at infinity, and the whole universe is here. And then, when you're at infinity, there's no there. It's just here. This is Dogen's view. I'm mentioning him because we'll study him. We can take both perspectives. We can look at here as in opposition to there, or we can understand here as, what shall I say, an experiential space that you don't divide into here and there. And this experiential space we may not feel it this way. It's like, oh, it's the whole universe or it's infinite, but it is actually infinite. Unless you draw a line. Unless you establish a here in contradistinction to there, a self in contradistinction to other. This is possible. We do it all the time, of course. It makes sense too, in many ways. But if you are willing to release those distinctions, you'll find yourself in an experiential space. I sometimes say an attentional space because it's like you bring through our attention, through our own mind, the world appears. Dogen says somewhere to his students in a little talk he gave, I wish for all of you to be continuously intimate with your field of mind. I wish for all of you, I encourage you to stay with your field of mind. We could say in the way I've just spoken about here, I encourage all of you to stay here. Not here, but here. With your experience as it is. And in Zen, we say, or it's not just Zen, but Mahayana Buddhism, things as they are. Suzuki Roshi famously spoke of things as they is. There's a debate, did he not speak English well enough, or was this a deep point? Maybe both. When things get divided into multiplicities, you always have here and there, because you have a focus. You say like this thing and not that. This is here and this is over there. When things are undivided, they come in this weird modality of undivided. It's just everything all at once. And staying here means to stay present to this undivided field of existence, being. Which sounds a little static, it's always changing. Now we human beings have a tendency to not stay there, and it's kind of mysterious. It's like I said, you don't have to attain the here-ness of your experiential space. This is already a given. It's like it's there. It's not like it's there. It's here. It's not something you need to manufacture, is what I mean to say. Right? And yet, as soon as there is something that we resist, you need to. It's easy to say, but it's something you want to start feeling as a kind of visceral, felt tendency in your own existence. It's like when there's something that is difficult, unpleasant, challenging, you can find yourself wanting to escape here. You may actually wish to be in a different place, like, on a beach. I think beaches are horrible. There's too much sand. But anyway, you sweat and then it sticks to your skin. It's awful. Don't go there. No, I'm just kidding. You may imagine yourself at a beach when it's cold like this. I don't want to. It's just like, snow. Of course, when it's too hot, you want some wind or, cool off. And there's a constant opportunity to not being here, to be somewhere else, to wish to have a different place. Now, both physically, but also experientially. You understand, right? I'm just speaking in a term of a metaphor. You want this relationship to be different than it is. You want this project to go differently. And when something is going well, you want to hold on to that, and you're resisting the inevitable change of the world. It's like, don't let that become different now. I'm in a good place. So that feels like I want to stay here, but here is dynamic, so you actually don't want to go along with how here evolves. You want to stay there, which is actually the past. Or you want to escape the here into the future, and you want to make something happen that's better. This is a relentless drive, not just in individuals, but in our whole society, is to improve the world, make the world a better place, because this is really not good enough. I mean, it's terrible. It's got to be better. This is escaping here into a future here. Now they say, right, wherever you go, there you are. This is someone observing you and speaking to you. It's like, you cannot escape yourself. Have you noticed you cannot escape yourself? Which means you take all your karma, Buddhists speak, but your patterns, your neuroses. If you go to the beach, they're right there. I'm not telling you anything new. I'm just pointing out the obvious. Yeah, but maybe if we want to say this as practitioners, wherever I go, here I am. I think, yes, you can go on retreat, you can pick out circumstances that are conducive to some spiritual development. And I'm not saying that's not useful. I mean, I've done this half my life, so I'm not going to criticize it. In fact, I'm in a space of I don't know if it's possible to skip over a place of retreat. But retreat as a word is really strange. It's like you step back from the world. You step back from the circumstances that everyone has to deal with. But no, I'm making myself certain circumstances in order to foster my awakening. What would it be like to examine what it takes to commit to the here-ness of your experience, here, always here, this experiential space, to commit to it fully. We could call it the truth of your experience, and I don't mean this in some sort of philosophical truth kind of way where you need a theory to define what's true. No, just with immediate clarity of this is what's happening right now. This is the truth of my experience. Commit to it. This is in my view, this is the ultimate commitment. And I don't just mean your internal truth, I have this feeling right now, but also the external circumstances. Like, it's snowing. Deal with it. Don't complain. Or if you do complain, then commit to complaining. Or admit you're complaining. I'm complaining right now. Yeah, I really think of this as the ultimate commitment to the truth of your experience. What does it take to do that? I mean, on paper, or the way I talk about it, sounds not so hard, so difficult. It's difficult. This tendency to want to escape your experience into something different, to want to escape into the past nostalgically, or to escape into the future, or to escape into a different place, is pervasive. So what are the ingredients to commit to the truth of your experience? Well, I would say the most important, in a way, ingredient is your intention. I'm kind of in love, I'm continuously in love with Suzuki Roshi's phrase, inmost request. We've got all kinds of requests, demands even, wishes for our life. It's like, I want to do this and I want to do that. Or maybe your wish is to get out of the whole thing. Inmost speaks to me, it's like, but underneath all that, I want to be this, I want to achieve that. Underneath all that, what do you really want? What do you really want? What is it really about? Now, this is, in my examination, it's very difficult, very, very difficult to pin it down and give it like a name. Because as soon as you give it a name, it's almost like you've made it too narrow. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's really narrow if you just say like, oh, I want to be, and then, put some kind of role there, like a profession or an activity or something, is too narrow. Or some project or achievement, or I want to be a singer, or, you might love to sing, but there's so much more that you want and also need to do with your life. So it actually goes into the how of living becomes actually really important. It's like, no matter what you do, like, how do you do it? How do you approach life? I've tried out phrases for myself and then used one for my book. It's like, to be fully alive. And I think, I can work with that phrase, but I can also find it sort of, it's too, almost already too cliche, but aliveness actually then means something like be present for the truth of your experience. Be present here, now, with this. Let this really be present. And then exploring what that really means. You could try other, qualities like feeling at home in the world, or feeling at home in your life, or being free. Now, freedom is, means I don't know. It's like, can mean anything. But the way I use it is, our tendency is to want to be free from something. It's like you want to, like I said, you want to get away from this, or you want to end this struggle and so forth. But the freedom that Buddhism speaks about is to be free just within the here-ness of your experience. It's like when you can accept it, that's when you're free. When you can allow it and work with it, that's when you're free, because then what are you divided from? Now, the second thing I think we need is zazen, or a version of it, meditation, whatever you call it. There may be some distinctions to explore, but I don't want to make them right now. So I'll call it zazen. Sitting, zazen means, translated, sitting absorption. Why? Why do you need it? You may decide not to need it, but like we're gathering here because you kind of think you need it. So, preaching to the choir. So my experience is like zazen is returning to here. You have some form of practice of returning attention to breath, returning attention to body, returning attention to phenomena, the sensorial appearance of the world, like what you're hearing right now, what you're seeing, what you're smelling, mindfulness practice. You have some way of returning to here. Sometimes I'm disappointed that the tradition talks so much about kind of sort of the less messy aspects of our existence, like, breath and body sensations. They may be painful, but it's like still, it's just like all these body sensations. Sure, I'll make contact with those. And then, the sounds and so forth. But the body sensations that we call feelings, and they can be so unbearable, seemingly unbearable. And they are here. They're here. When I say commit to the truth of your experience, you're committing to those. And you're committing not just to those as like this sort of animal, this curious animal, like this animal, your feelings, it walks around in you all the time. It's like it's doing all kinds of things. It's moving, takes a shit. It's like, oh God, this smells. Sorry, I didn't plan this metaphor. So committing to the animals of your feelings is like you've got a zoo there. And daily zazen is really helpful because you do not want to continuously decide whether you want to do it or not. This is really hard. I mean, you can do it. I'm just saying the offering of daily zazen is like, at this time, I sit down and commit to being here. And it's not a question. Like, if you're still asking yourself, like, should I do it? This is hard. You're adding complication to your life. Now, if your life is busy and you say, like, I sit Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's good too. But the reason in this everyday practice period that I'm trying to experiment with together with you is it's like make make a commitment, like make a schedule and remove this from decision making. Because you might not feel like it, which might happen, most of the time. I'm too tired. It's like, oh, I have a busy day. I should get started. Now, a third ingredient that I think we need is, on our website, we now call it intensives, because I tried to, have a word for sitting for 7 days, sitting for a weekend, sitting for 1 day, sitting for half a day, extended periods of zazen. And I don't want to call it a retreat, because you're not stepping back, you're stepping forward, stepping in. And what does it do? It's like the accumulation of zazen. Like after 40 minutes, you have enough, and then you have another 40 minutes, and then you have another 40 minutes, and then you have another 40 minutes. Well, what are you encountering while you're doing this repeated zazen? What you're encountering is your resistance to hear. Just this body, this mind, just these circumstances, just this annoying neighbor on the cushion who's like fidgeting around, just this. Developing the ability to be with it. Or a step further, to be it. Not I'm here and my experience is there and I could maybe manipulate it, but really giving that up. It's like this. No further commentary. This is a commitment to what I'm calling here, or the truth of your experience. Zazen, when extended in an intensive, is like it pushes you to this place. It's like you allow the structure of an intensive to push you into that. And you'll find your resistance. It's just not going to feel good. So, for this practice period, I'm requiring that you are doing one of those. You can escape into doing just half a day. Which everyone can do. The experience of sesshin when it fruits is something like your mind quiets down, and it's not like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking. It's like your mind just quiets down because it has nothing to do, because your attention just is present with this, with here, with experience as it is. And then there's nothing to say about it. There's nothing to comment. It's just this. And it's kind of like, oh, it's a release. It's a relief. It's an arriving. And the interesting thing to me is that we cannot think our way to that place. You cannot do that. If you try, if you're still trying to do that, stop. It is just something that shifts. Now, the fourth thing that I think we need is some kind of embodiment practice. Now, embodiment is a tricky term. But basically what I mean is something like merge attention with body sensations. Now, our zazen practice is already doing that, because this is a postural practice. You could sit in a chair, and be comfortable. And that's like this morning. Somebody talked to me recently about practicing lying down, and it's something that doesn't work so well for me because I can fall asleep anywhere at any time, and it's sort of like when I lie down, it's just like I'm just falling asleep, unless I really make a big effort. I can almost fall asleep standing, which is a really weird feeling. But anyway, but I tried it this morning, and it has a certain kind of power because the body doesn't have to uphold itself. It is truly more relaxing, but that's also what sort of puts you in the vicinity of sleep more easily. But what I mean by a postural practice is like there's a certain alertness that just comes with the upright spine. And in order to relax in the uprightness of this posture, there is a kind of mixing that needs to happen of, a downward energy that is relaxing and an upward energy that is alert and keeps you awake. And this is a tremendous education for the body. How to be alert in a relaxed way. This sitting posture facilitates this. But over the years, decades now, a couple decades for me, or 2.5 decades, is like I have found at a certain point that it's also important for me to discover this merging of attention and body sensations in movement. And we do some of this, and that's a reason, as a side commentary, that's the reason why I'm very reluctant to sort of get rid of the ritual aspect of our practice, because in the rituals you experience yourself as a posture, and you feel the body, in its integrity standing, or in its integrity walking, or, in its integrity relating to someone. Pace, mutual embodiment, feeling others, not thinking others, but feeling others in a shared space, and could even say in a shared body. Now, we don't do a whole lot of it, but it's like when you participate in it, you kind of have to get a hang of it, like what it's really about. Because on the surface of it, I understand it's kind of like people's like, what is this? What kind of Japanesey theater are you doing? So it takes time, and I don't know if we have enough time to notice the subtlety of what these forms offer. But anyway, I have a ambiguous relationship to them, but I'm not willing to abandon them. But you could, and that's partly what I'm talking about, you could find a different complementary embodiment practice together with your zazen. Like as many of you know, I practice Qigong, and this is just something I've settled on, a system that I've started to love because it's doing the job for me. But you can find your own embodiment practice. Again, I'm speaking about it as a merging of attention with body sensations that allows you to be present through your body in the here-ness of your existence without having to think. It starts to feel natural just to move and not to direct yourself constantly from your cognitive mind. The fifth thing I want to mention is study. I think we need study. Now, the way I think about study is working with your views. And you inherit views from your culture whether you like it or not. It just happens. And we live from these views, and unless you examine them, they have great power over your life. And it's views about fundamental things like self, space, time, mind, body, things like that. Ordinarily, this is like philosophers kind of like talk about these things, and the way we may think philosophy is like has nothing to do with me, but philosophers actually over centuries and millennia have laid down certain views that then seep into the culture, and then you actually live those views, whether you know it or not. And Buddhism offers us a kind of a friction. It's like it's a friction in friction with our cultural views. This is really useful. It doesn't mean you have to take on every view that Buddhism offers, but it allows you to examine whether the views that you're holding are true, or from a pragmatist point of view, which I think Buddhism is pragmatism, as a form of pragmatism, is like, it's not so much about is it true, but is it working? Is it helping you to fulfill your inmost request? Is it freeing you from suffering? So we'll do something like that during this period, through this fascicle that I picked, Dogen's writing on undivided activity in life and death. The sixth thing I think we need is a teacher. Now, it's a little awkward for me because I'm in the role of teacher to say like, oh, you need a teacher. You don't need me. I would say, you need a conversation. You need to give someone permission to reflect something back to you. This could be your best friend, or this could be your partner, or this. You can put them in the role of what I call teacher. It's like we can't see ourselves really. I mean, to a certain degree, yes, but not sufficiently. And it's also related to views. It's like, in examining your views, you can, if you allow someone to call you on certain views or, question those, like, you really want to see it this way? Or have you considered this view? Somebody who's has enough experience to reframe something for you so you can look at it differently and don't. This is also about speeding up your process, And then I think we need sangha, community. You could say like you need kind of vertical vertical community, like with a teacher and with what we would call Dharma ancestors, people who have through the generations looked at this teaching and made sense of it, and there's a lot of texture there that we can learn from. But we also need kind of horizontal community with our contemporaries, because we live in a particular time. And to do this, of course, to do something with others is a whole lot easier. It's like other people are showing up, so I feel I have to show up. And at some point you show up for others. Like if you take in this community, if you take certain responsibilities, the great thing about this is like, oh, I have another thing to do on my calendar. But the great thing is like, once you have a responsibility, like you have to ring the bells on Tuesdays, you've got to show up. If you don't have a role, you're like, stay in bed, practice lying down. I mean, it's kind of the way I've made my practice life work, It's like I was willing to take responsibilities. So I have to show up, like I have to give this talk, or I have to, talk with people about practice. If I didn't have this commitment, I might not do it. Because there are other things to do. And that goes back to what's your inmost request. Is it important enough? So anyway, we've made these kinds of commitments because then we're reflecting, what do we want to do? So being there for each other, showing up for each other is helpful, but also starting to see something about your experience vis-a-vis somebody else's experiences and how we're different and not so different at the same time, like appreciating difference, but also finding a lot of commonality. The commonality is confirming. It's like, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, it's like that for this person. And then also, wow, it's really different for this person. And then that kind of confirms also a commitment to your own uniqueness. It's like, no, I can recognize that's how it is for me. This dialogue is important. It can be a little tedious, Listening to so much confusion. So, okay, takes time to articulate. But this is both for sangha and for practice with a teacher. I think maybe the most important thing is like to put yourself in positions where you need to articulate your experience, so it doesn't just pass you by. You make it actually conscious. There's some contradiction to, Zen really emphasizes non-conceptual sitting, right, where you let go of thought and then you bring thought in through study and conversing with a teacher and community. Yeah, but it's hard to explain, right? But because you're working on views, you do that, but you also just let it go. And then finally, I would say we need engagement with the world. Engagement. Now, I'm not like, that sounds like engaged Buddhism, or, you need to make the world a better place or help somebody, and that's fine. That can be part of how you understand your engagement, but I'm not talking about it in this narrow way, like charity work or helping a certain cause. Again, can be part of what you're going to do. But engagement is something like, when you make a commitment to hear, when you commit to the truth of your experience, when you commit to your body sensations, when you bring attention into the subtlety of your experience, you will find that you are in resonance with the world, inevitably. The world gets to you. Other people get to you. The situation of animals get to you. I'm saying it this way is because it's not particularly comfortable. Like, we would also like to just keep certain things out. It's too painful to be aware of this or to be present to that. But a bodhisattva, I would say, is willing to experience the world in the resonances that it has in your body as fully as possible. It could feel overwhelming. But if you have the ability to stay with your experience as it is, what emerges, I think, over time, to my experience, are certain points of clarity, points of engagement, ways in which you feel the world wants and needs you. Do you know what I'm saying? Those things that the world wants from you and needs you to do them. Find a way to do that. Because this not only is this the appropriate response to other beings, like when we talk about the bodhisattva responding to all beings, not only is it that, it's what makes your life meaningful. It's necessary. Like some people talk about a meaning crisis now. Because I think there's a meaning crisis because not everyone understands sufficiently that we need to let ourselves be drawn out. Open ourselves up so that the world can come in and then be drawn out. Now, here's the thing. It's not possible to be drawn out by everything. You may be resonant with everything, or nearly everything, but you are only going to be drawn out to certain things because you're limited. You're a small being with limited time and energy and attention. That's okay. This is something to discover. This is okay. Rather than saying, oh, it's so overwhelming, I'm not going to do anything. It's like, I'll just turn on the TV. Sorry. I do that. I don't have a TV, but I have a computer where, everything is available. I can turn it on. But I notice the escape. So what are you drawn to? What draws you out? And then I'll say it in this very, embarrassingly simple way. Do that. Because when you find yourself to be useful somewhere, to someone, in some regard, it creates meaning. If it's useful and joyful at the same time, that's fantastic. Because otherwise the danger is that life sort of becomes a little empty. Maybe we here don't have this problem. Many people do. And I want you to also study how that's like in your life, because when you do it and you model it, you are demonstrating to people that it's possible to lead a meaningful life. This is important. This is part of being a bodhisattva. Demonstrate through your own embodiment and your own activity that it's possible to lead a life that's rooted in presence and is engaged. All right. This is enough. Okay. Thanks for getting started together and being here in person, online. I want to make an effort. It's not so easy, but I want to make an effort to make this hybrid situation that we have, in person, online, as real as possible, so that when you're online, it doesn't feel like you're kind of like a second-rate participant. But it's not so easy, because you're in the room, but also in the room differently. So if you would like to engage through your online participation then it needs initiative from you as well. Right? So I want to always make an effort to not forget that you're here. It's important for me to see your faces in the screen that we have here. But anyway, we need to stay aware of that and make it a point of our shared practice. Because I think it's great that you can participate from a remote location, and so we're making a big complex here. All right, thank you.